Hello, A Taste of AZ podcast listeners. Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com. Let's get into the episode. Well, hello, A Taste of AZ listeners. We are here today at one of the coolest spots in the Valley. Not super new, but as part of the restaurant group, one of the newer concepts. But I'll let my guests go ahead and introduce themselves, where we're at, and what you guys do here.
Jeremy Pacheco. I'm the culinary director for Geunine Concepts, and we're at the Geunine today, our flagship restaurant and home of our corporate office.
My name is Blake Farbman, and I am the director of operations for the group, and together Jeremy and I try and make things come to life. And yeah, we're at the Geunine. Why not?
And so you guys work hand in hand a lot then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nice. And so how long have you been with the restaurant group?
Well, on our partners would say that we're in a relationship at work. So, you know, we've got our home wives and our work wife.
Uh-huh.
He's the wife. But I've been with the group for 3 years now.
Okay. And how long has it been for you, Jeremy?
3.5.
Okay. And so last time we chatted, it was on the podcast over at the VIG, and that was pretty recently after you had joined the group. For those who are unaware, give a quick synopsis of kind of your background and how you got into cooking.
Yeah, I've spent most of my life in hotels and resorts, really. I born and raised in Tucson, worked at the Sheraton El Conquistador, moved to Scottsdale, went to culinary school, spent 7 years at the Phoenician, headed out from there to work at the Wynn Las Vegas and opened the SW Steakhouse there. Spent a total of 7 years there between two stints, and then a total of 8 years at Lawns at the Hermosa Inn, between two different trips there as well. So, and then landed here with Geunine Concepts.
And those are all such unique environments to be working in, especially, you know, in the food and beverage industry. But somewhere like the Wynn is so different from Hermosa Inn, I would think. Is that the case?
Yeah, very different. I mean, the business levels, the stress levels, and the expectation. I mean, we always strove for the best everywhere I worked, but the Wynn was a whole nother animal.
Can you tell he signed an NDA before he came on today?
Yeah.
And I encourage people to go back and listen to the previous episode with you, but give us an example of like what a crazy day at the Wynn would look like for you.
Opening the steakhouse, where I spent a lot of my time, we would do about 750 covers a night.
Wow.
Just crazy numbers. I mean, the check averages there were about $125 a head, selling $1,000 to $5,000 bottles of wine, and it was just madness, really.
Mm-hmm.
From the time we opened at 5 o'clock till after 10 o'clock, just nonstop.
You know, it's interesting because you guys have how many different locations under Geunine Concepts?
11 total locations now.
Okay, so I would imagine on a busy night across all locations, you probably do somewhere around that many covers, right?
Yeah.
But obviously you're not in all those places at once. What is like the difference between being a part of kind of overseeing all of that versus being the head and running all these different places but not being able to be at all the spots at once?
Well, it's really just trying to find a good team to run every location. We really encourage our managers and chefs to own their business and their location, and ideally it works out that way. That's the struggle. The everyday struggle is really getting them to buy into that and finding the right people for it. But, yeah, I mean, at this point now, it's keeping things running and keeping the right people in place and developing them from there and developing the restaurants from there.
I think that's where we always stay focused is, you know, at some point somebody taught us how to do our job well, and that allowed us some advancement in the industry. And, you know, so really our jobs are to nurture growth and teach people things that, you know, to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
And expand their knowledge base and, you know, hope that they, you know, move up to that level too and pass the knowledge, you know, and that's really kind of what we do on a day-to-day. It's a lot of that.
So being at kind of the top level of one of the most powerhouse restaurant groups in all of Arizona. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
Sure. So I started in the restaurant business at a young, ripe age of 14 at McDonald's.
Oh, really?
Yep. It was, Dad said you need to earn money to pay for car insurance, otherwise you're not driving, and that's where he took us to go work. And, I think it was by default initially. And then as I got older and came out to Arizona for college, I grew up in a food town in Chicago, came out to Arizona for college, and as a college student, it was an easy way to make some beer money and, serve tables at Chompies. And, and then I think, just being reliable allowed me to kind of fill a lot of different positions in restaurants and learn kind of the grand scope. And then when I got done with school, I went back to Chicago, and I was a bartender at the time and had worked in Old Town right before that. And that's where I wanted to be in Chicago, and got a job with a group called J. Alexander's, which is much like Houston's. And I think what they taught me there was a high level of service, and standards, lineups every day, making sure your shoes are polished. And so there was that part, but I was also working at Raw, which is a local group here. And I bartended and opened up that location in Chicago. And with Raw was kind of where I got my advancement. So I saw an opportunity to, we get done with college. We don't know what we want to do with the rest of our lives. We just want to have some fun. But at some point, you got to grow up. And I think at that point, it was like, I'm really good at this. I should stick with it and pursue a career in it. So that's what I did with Raw. And threw my name in the hat. We always tell our managers, like, raise your hand. You want something, let's get you there. And I raised my hand and said I want to do openings, and went and opened up a couple locations as the bar trainer. And while all the trainers were asleep and nursing their hangovers from the night before while we were opening, I was getting up with that hangover at 7 a.m. and getting in there and trying to take on whatever additional projects I could in the opening. And that kind of got my foot in the door. And then I oversaw openings for Raw for about 3 years in the early 2000s and opened up 22 Raws. And
are you talking Raw Sushi?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I oversaw, everything, construction, HR, and I was the point person, and kind of put it all together, taught myself how to read blueprints and whatnot. So I got that background. And then the economy tanked, and I went and became a GM for Raw, and ran the Mill Avenue location at the time, and then Kierland, and then left and went to go work for a local franchisee of a pizza group, and did that for a couple, 2.5 years, using the knowledge of opening restaurants and expanding with him while running some restaurants. And then I left and went to California to become a director of operations for a group called The Counter in Los Angeles, and really was not prepared for the job and didn't have the experience that I needed to do a good job. And I was let go from there and came back to Phoenix. And if I came back to Phoenix, I wanted to work for a great group, and that's where I got connected with Fox Restaurant Concepts and spent about 5 years with them, mainly in the Flower Child brand, and got some more chops in my background with training from doing openings. And I was privileged enough to help expand Flower Child in a way where we had all the managers and chefs coming through our restaurant to train them at I think we did about 100 of them in a year as they expanded, or 2 years. And then, I got an opportunity to partner with Alex Strada right before COVID, and that's kind of where Jim and Tucker came in from Genuine Concepts. So Alex was getting ready to open up a restaurant on Via de Ventura and Hayden, and him and I knew each other, and he wanted me to come in and work with him, and the deal was sweet. And that's where I met Jim and Tucker, because they were investing in Alex in that space. And I think what we learned there, we failed in 9 months, and we had to raise more money and get another restaurant open in that space to try and make something of it. And we did that. And I think my time spent with these guys, they saw that I had a good skill set for what they were needing, and they pulled me out and brought me in to work with the group as a whole. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
And that restaurant I believe it was Strata originally, right? And now it has evolved into Compo, which is under the Genuine Concepts group. So when that transition happened for you, is that something that, it almost feels like serendipity that you kind of ended up right where you belong. Would you characterize it that way?
I would. I guess a lot's changed for me personally in the last handful of years. And, I think it's one thing to want things, but then it's another thing to kind of put forth the effort. And I think we all want things, but sometimes we don't know how to get there. And I read a lot, and I think, I was inspired enough to change the way I live my life. Getting up at 4 a.m. and, exercising, and then, keeping your finger on the pulse and reading emails before the day even starts. And, and I think we do a lot of that, and we're always kind of engaged to what's going on with, like you said, it must be hard with 11 properties. But if you got your finger on the pulse, you know what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that all starts for me before the day even gets going. So just, it's a lifestyle thing. And, sometimes it gets in the way of personal life, sometimes it doesn't. And, I think the one thing that we have is we've got a very dedicated group, sometimes to our own personal detriment in our personal lives, but we care immensely, and we're constantly trying to do better. And we're all alike in that way. It's odd. And it can be sad at times too, because you're never satisfied. But, I think we believe that if our finger's on the pulse and we're paying attention to the details, our guests don't really recognize some of the things that we recognize, but we try really hard. I will say that.
Well, and it's interesting too, because the way that you two kind of bounce off of each other, and you have different personalities, as everyone does, but it seems like you guys would mesh very well. And it seems like a good team to be a part of, especially having dined at your guys' various spots. I know that it must be a good team to work with, at least I would think so, because of how wonderful each of the locations is. If you could, give me the breakdown of the different brands that you have and how many different locations they have per brand.
So the original concept was the VIG. We currently have 6 locations, so it's Arcadia was the original. Where we're at today, the Geunine was the second one. And we have Fillmore downtown, McCormick Ranch, Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, McDowell Mountain, and our newer ones are North Central here on Central and Dunlap, between Northern Dunlap, and then our newest location of the VIG is out in Peoria at Park West. Like I said, the Geunine was the second location of the VIG. Since I joined the group, it was kind of time it needed a change. So a year and a half ago, we decided to make that change, and we decided, during COVID, we had moved the corporate office here, so we decided to kind of make this the flagship restaurant, and I presented an idea of doing a wood-burning oven concept, and we rolled with it and really tore this building down to the roots to what it is today. Then Campo Italian, obviously our Italian restaurant, and then we've got our little dive bar called the Little Woody that I think it's a lot more than a little dive bar anymore. It's pretty popular. And the Womack, which is our cocktail lounge here on 7th Street as well.
Also, don't forget our baby.
Our favorite place, the McMillan up in Flagstaff.
Oh, yes. Why do I feel like that's a little tongue-in-cheek?
It's our most challenging location to operate, just being so far away. And
But it's unique, too. It's like, I'll say this about Jim and Tucker. They are very in tune with cool buildings, and they kind of have a vision before it's actually a reality. The McMillan's in a building that was built in 1887. So you can imagine the character that's in that building. Absolutely. In Flagstaff, which can be kind of a creepy town.
I'm sure it's a ton of fun to work with, that old character, right?
Right on Route 66.
Yeah.
It's a cool red building right on Route 66. So, it is a cool building. It's an awesome location.
The nostalgia for us, and it rubs off on us, too. We kind of see things and we go, God, that's like just super cool. Like, it might not be something, but it's got a story, right? And that's pretty unique, because we all have a different story.
It's crazy how unique Flagstaff in general is from down here in Phoenix. Yep. It's like, people make the joke, Arizona is just a desert, and then obviously if you know that you go to Flagstaff and it's completely different. But it's crazy how much the culture and the buildings itself, especially in downtown, it's very different than almost anywhere I can think of in Phoenix.
It's hard to believe you're in Arizona when you get up there. I think that was one of the first times I went up there, and I'd been there before, but it was snowing, and you see the sign, that you're still kind of like in the state of Arizona with the big state, when you cross, and I'm just like, wow.
It almost like reminds me of a mini San Francisco with the creepy old buildings and stuff, kind of, like this. So it's definitely unique, and funny to think that you're still in Arizona when you're there.
Well, and I didn't venture around there too long ago. Over the past 7-8 years, I've spent a lot more time up there, mostly for work and things like that. But before all of the updates happened and people started moving kind of south of the train tracks, it sounds from people that I've talked to like it was very different environment than it is now.
They surprisingly now there's a lot of good restaurateurs up there, and there's some really good restaurants that you wouldn't think would be up there that are up there. And as you're up there more, you learn more about what's kind of going on, and I mean, like you said, I mean, even south of the tracks, there's just a lot going on. I mean, they're about to get their first In-N-Out. I can't imagine what that line's going to be like on Milton, but for us, we actually took advantage of our neighbor not being there anymore, and we're going to expand our business out there. And like Jeremy said, it's the most challenging, but yet for some reason our group finds that to be fun. And and we always even compo, it's it would have been easy to throw in the towel, and yes, you don't want to bankrupt a business, but you could have walked away. And we didn't. We leaned in harder, and we just kind of dug our heels in, and that's kind of how our group works. I mean, we get kind of gritty,
Sure.
but we're not afraid to fail.
Well, and I feel like you got to be like that to be in the restaurant business. If you're afraid of failure, then restaurant business probably isn't for you, right?
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
So you mentioned all of the cool buildings that you guys have found. It's definitely not limited to the McMillan up in Flag. I love the McDowell Mountain Vig because it's just such a unique spot. Did you guys build that building, or was that okay? That
was a ground up, and it's cool. It's got that Frank Lloyd Wright feel to it. It really fits the area.
But that was on purpose to do it that way.
Yeah, it definitely feels immersed in that environment, especially when you're kind of just up on the sidewalk. It's almost like you guys carved a pit out of the ground and made one of the coolest patios in Scottsdale, I would say.
Yeah.
Are there any other ones that were ground up builds for you guys?
McCormick Ranch was as well.
Okay. I don't think I've been to that location, which is a VIG as well, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, you mentioned that today we are at the Geunine, which was the second location of the VIG. How long ago was it that you transitioned from the VIG to the Geunine?
So April of last year, 2022.
Okay.
So we closed December 21, and about a 6-month remodel, and we opened last April. So.
And you mentioned that it's kind of your flagship restaurant. Why do you consider it that?
Like I said, with the corporate office here, I'm here a lot more, and we try to kind of develop menus or menu items that will eventually make it onto the big menus as well. So we call it our R&D kitchen, where we play around with stuff and then, find something we like, and it eventually trickles down to what we're doing at the Vigs or one of the other locations.
I think his job's a lot harder than mine, honestly.
I chuckled a little bit when you mentioned that you brought in the wood-fired kitchen too, because for a lot of restaurants, it sounds like it's almost more of a hassle to get it all arranged than it is, I don't want to say that it is a benefit, but it seems like such an ordeal. What was it to you that made you go, we got to get a wood-fired kitchen in here?
Well, it's probably I was watching Netflix too much and some of the shows on there, and I think the wood-fired cooking really got popular in the last 5 years, and I had been wanting to do something with the wood-fired oven for a while, and I think we ran across a pizza oven that someone was trying to get rid of, and we moved it in, and we're doing pizzas, but we don't want it limited to a pizza place. We really want to have fun with it, and we try and have as much hit that oven as possible. So I think we were a little aggressive when we first started, and about 70% of the menu came from that oven. We realized it was too much because pizza takes up a lot of space.
You kind of forget what we went through going through the transition.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
being the transition to wood-fired.
Just in general, his job is so hard, right? Like the pressure cooker of writing menus and being creative is just a hard thing. And I think we got to 2 weeks out of opening, and it was like, well, we're not completely satisfied with the menu. Let's go take a trip to LA and eat a bunch of food for 2 days. And that even turned out to be kind of a funny story, because we got there and we made all these reservations. We literally eat to your until you want to fall asleep all day in LA. And then, our Jim had a grandkid coming on the way, so he had to dip out early and get on a plane on a whim and go back to Phoenix. And we got through the next day and somehow made it to some other restaurants because our flight kept getting delayed. So we initially were supposed to leave at like 1, and we didn't get into Phoenix till like 11 at night. So it was
I
like
think we hit 7 restaurants in about 36 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That borderline doesn't even sound pleasant. It sounds almost like
it was a
painful.
lot.
It's not. We always complain too, or him and I have a running joke. It's like every time we have menu tastings, it's like you always get the text later in the day. It's like, dude, that killed me. Like, I'm dying right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But it was a fun story. And then, we get a place open. We don't know what we're doing. And, we've got a menu. We know how to train because we've got other properties, but the service style is a little bit different. And, and then all of a sudden you're open. And it's like, what just happened? Like.
So you've both done openings of restaurants before. Was there anything that was unique about this spot for you guys?
I think just the remodel, and we really wanted, like I said earlier, we wanted to kind of tear this building down to the roots. It's originally a 1960s bank designed by Ralph Haver that does a lot of the mid-century modern buildings around town, kind of at the same time as the Frank Lloyd Wright and things like that. And what's cool about this building is someone said it's kind of built like a freeway bridge. It's all cement. Like you can see the cement pillars and cement ceiling. And so we could really kind of open it wide open. And when they turned it into a VIG, it was actually a Bank of America call center. So it was a Arizona bank. Really? Then it was a Bank of America, and everything was covered in drywall. And our owners, Jim and Tucker, started tearing the drywall down and found this awesome bank vaults. That's actually our back bar now. That's kind of this egg crate kind of concrete shape to it. So that is the bar is original. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
incredible.
And
that
who would
really
cover
is
that,
incredible.
right?
Yeah, and it was covered with drywall when they bought it. So, but if you've been to the original VIG in Arcadia, it's a lot of concrete and steel, and they kind of followed that same design when they did this, and it was a lot of concrete and steel, and it was pretty dark. And we wanted to, they actually had some of these stained glass windows covered, and so we really wanted to kind of tear it down, and we opened it up and highlighted the windows and the open space, and bring the inside out as much as possible. We're actually sitting in what used to be the drive-through teller too.
Wow.
So when they made this building a VIG, the drive-through teller space was covered, but they had on an open patio, and the neighbors didn't like it, so it was an enclosed patio. So yeah, it's kind of some cool stories of this building, and I think that the build-out came out amazing. Our owner's wife, Trina, did an amazing job, and she did the design at Campo here and North Central and Park West, and she's just done an amazing job with it.
That's the hard part for us is like we think differently, and when you're working with creative people like in that world, it's like they start talking about stuff and you just can't put your mind around it, but then when you see it come to life, you're like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like,
well, it's interesting too because between this spot and the VIG McDowell that was a ground-up build, and then the VIG Fillmore, there's like through lines. Not only is there like the plants and the natural touches, but then like the mid-century design of this place and the architecture, the concrete, that obviously is very present over in McDowell Mountain and in the VIG Fillmore as well. But they all are very unique as well. And I think that's very cool that it's not like, when you find these buildings, the fact that bank was there, you can't replicate that. You probably, maybe someone who does design could come up with something like that. But I was under the impersonation that when you guys did the renovation, you added that in. It's incredible that was there before.
No, that's been there since they turned into a VIG, so it's pretty incredible.
I bet when you guys pulled that down, it was just like, this is the coolest building ever.
Why didn't we do that before?
Yeah.
No, but they really have an eye. Like you said, the Fillmore is built in the early 1900s, right? And so I think that's one of the things that I was really impressed with when I first joined the group was, I went to each location and everyone was so unique and had its own personality. But again, like you said, especially with the VIGs, you can tell it's a VIG. You can kind of see those touches are still there.
Absolutely. Well, let's get a quick message in from our sponsors and then we'll jump back into it.
All right.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com. Alrighty, so we were talking about how unique this building is, but we haven't really, we touched on the wood fire component, but we haven't really dug too much into the food and the beverage program. Give me the quick rundown of what people can expect here food-wise.
Like I said, the wood burning oven, we want to do pizza, so the pizzas are obviously popular, but we wanted to focus on local products as much as possible as well. And really, it's kind of evolved into kind of just having some fun with some classics. Like right now, we have duck confit rolls, and we did some squash blossoms over the summer. Right now, we've got lamb meatballs that are probably one of our most popular items, and those are a local product from Roby Dairy. So
really?
Yeah, and kind of a take on a deconstructed gyro with tzatziki sauce underneath and homemade pitas. So really, I think the idea was for the menu to be fun and shareable, and for people to come in with a group and order 10, 12 items and have some drinks and just have a good time. Like really, so it's a little elevated from what the VIG experience is, and I guess that's another reason why we would call it the flagship, is a little bit elevated from what our other locations do, and then the food's a little more elevated as well.
And it seems like for you, this is where you get the closest touch on the food that's coming out of the kitchen. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I spend my most time here, and we change the menu here probably more often than any of our other locations as well, and continue to develop, and like I said, just have fun with it, and whatever seasonal. We work with Bob McClendon pretty closely. So exciting right now with the fall. We've got like 3 or 4 different squashes from McClendon that we're putting onto the menu, and working with that and having fun with the seasonal items.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're like several generations deep of Arizonan native, and your family was involved in agriculture as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm 9th generation from Arizona.
Wow.
My father and his father were cotton farmers in Marana.
That's incredible.
He's a real Diamondback fan.
Oh, yeah? So I got to say again, people, go check out that episode with you over at the VIG for more on kind of your history, because there's so many cool stories of how you've gotten to here. But jumping back into the Geunine, so how rotational is the menu, and are there any items you just can't keep off without people freaking out?
Like I said, the lamb meatballs probably won't come off, and we've got our chef de cuisines here that run it, and let's take that off. I'm like, I don't think we can.
Yeah.
Like, it's just too popular. So the pizzas, we do a classic margarita, but then we play around with it. The other pizzas change a couple times a year, but we've changed the menu 3 to 4 times a year, and then we always have specials running. So we always have 3 to 4 specials that, again, will be seasonally inspired and changing all the time.
Yeah, and this place is probably the funnest menu, the most I shouldn't say well executed, but just it's fun, it's unique, but it's not over the top. Like,
Sure.
You can step in the box and be happy. And then the environment too. But I mean, the care that this guy puts into, the pita alone, just for the lamb meatballs, I think this guy spent 3-4 weeks on just perfecting it. And this thing poofs up like a balloon, and it's just super cool.
No, and that's where we dig into it, working with our local partners. We use Noble Bread at all of our locations, and a long-standing relationship with Jason, and he helped develop our recipe for the pizza dough, not only here but at Campo, and so he really helps us with that development. He came over once we got the pizza oven fired up and started making pizzas with us, and we actually went when we were open Campo, when we were on the roof of his bakery on a little
uni oven,
making pizzas just
really?
to test
Wow.
out the pizza dough and stuff. So
and my daughter was 7 at the time, and that was a cool experience for her to be a part of that. And then you see his operation, you're just like, God, like this guy, it's incredible. It's just a cool thing to see.
It is really quite incredible to be in instances like I'm sure both of you, as you just explained, have gone through, where you're just surrounded by people that in food and beverage, which is such a unique experience. Like anytime you eat something, it's providing you life, but it's so much more than that. It's creativity. It's incredible. And to be able to do stuff like that and work with local farmers that put their heart and soul to put something into the ground and get out varieties of squash for you to work with, it really is such a unique environment, the Arizona food and beverage scene. What are some of the other farms that you work with and how you incorporate them into your menu?
We use Crow's Dairy a lot. Wendell Crow do their goat cheese. A lot of it's black pepper feta is probably our favorite, so we get that a lot. He does a butter pecan chev that we're putting on the menu here with the fall that goes awesome with the squash. Like I mentioned, McClendon Farms and
Rovey Dairy
and
too.
Rovey Dairy. So that's our main local.
Well, it's interesting because you can get stuff like lamb meatballs, and then you've got crisp cacio e pepe bites. What exactly is that?
It's kind of a take on mac and cheese bites.
Oh, okay.
I think cacio e pepe has gone crazy in the last couple of years too, so we did a take on that. So it's a mac and cheese bites with that pecorino and black pepper flavor to it.
And I see under the specialties you've got a double smash burger. What is what makes a perfect burger to you?
I think I prefer doing the burger on the flat top and really getting that char and that crispy caramelization to the meat when it cooks. And smash burgers, I think, are really popular right now too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of the things that we did with that. And I had one of our old chefs that had a smash burger restaurant, so he kind of helped develop that as well. So it was something that made on the menu. And that burger wasn't on the menu when we first opened, and we didn't think we needed one, but we're still a neighborhood joint that people want a little something of everything. So burger, pizza, and fun appetizer. Like you said, we have octopus, and we're putting Argentine langoustines on the menu this Friday. So a lot of real different items. So we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like, I think as we been in the business for a long time, our palates are different, I think, than the average consumer. And we try things, we go, wow, that's really cool and unique, and that'd be great, and then it just doesn't resonate, right? And then you go back to the drawing board and you go, I think we kind of forgot about the average consumer a little bit. Doesn't mean we need to do something so basic, but we need to kind of lean into that. So it's a sophisticated smash burger, right? But it's still a burger. But we always lean into, let's just do it better than everybody else, right?
Well, it's interesting too because I think there's a lot of restaurants that specifically will avoid approachable items to be a little avant-garde. With a spot like this that's like a cool neighborhood joint that's still upscale, when I have something that's like cacio e pepe bites that just sounds fun, and I know the people I'm with are going to want to try that, and then that's really good, I might go for something like the lamb meatballs, which is not something I personally would typically order, but I've had enough of your food to know that I'm going to trust whatever you put out in front of me. I want to mention as well that your guys' happy hour is pretty incredible. Some of the prices on here, like $9 cocktails. Your guys' cocktails, we'll dig into that a little bit, but you got the cacio e pepe pizza for $9, pepperoni pizza for $11. Give people a little bit more of the rundown of your happy hour.
From 3 to 6 o'clock, we wanted to dig deep and get people in here and have some fun and get a chance to try our food, early in the afternoon and get some drinks in them. So, it's some great offerings at a great price.
And as I mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, happy hour is a weird thing. Happy hour almost these days to me feels more like people go where the crowds are at for happy hour without thinking about the pricing. And I would love if people would come here and see the great deals that we have and how much we've leaned into the neighborhood and how cool the environment is and how much fun it would be, with just a loaded up. I mean, 5 to 6 is crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and maybe that's the thing. People aren't out of work till 5 o'clock.
Sure.
But, I think it's a great happy hour.
That's really something I think we did with the whole menu was have fun items that you find at some of the higher end restaurants in Old Town at the mall that you go there and they're fine and you leave feeling like someone robbed you. But I think that, we're offering those items in the Uptown neighborhood and we're not trying to gouge anyone. We want to give an honest price and a great experience. So.
Well, I would say I'm 27 going on 72 because I like to eat at like 5 p.m. every single night. And with some of these prices, like I looked on here and the first thing I saw was $5 beer. And I know you guys always have a great local beer offering. I'm like, that's one of the best priced beers, especially at a place of this level that I've seen around. I mentioned the cocktails. You've got several of them on happy hour here, but just overall, talk to me a little bit about your cocktail program and kind of throughout your different concepts. What do cocktails mean to your different places?
It was interesting when we did this location. We really jumped further into the wine list, thinking that with the food is going to be a more wine-friendly menu. And again, we went a lot more out wines by the glass than we normally would, and we offered a couple different pour sizes, so you can get a single glass or a 2-glass carafe. And the idea behind that was that, if a couple comes in, you can order a couple different wines and, be able to share it and try some different fun wines. Did a lot more local wines when we opened as well. Unfortunately, they didn't resonate. We're down to just a couple from Sam Pillsbury now. And really, this location, especially of all of ours, is the most cocktail driven of all of them.
Really?
We're really, you mentioned the beers. We don't sell a ton of beer here. We still have a great local beer list, like you mentioned. Like all our other restaurants do. It really, the cocktails have just gone crazy here. They're really popular. So just fun items. I think our bar manager here and myself and Caesar are present. We have fun with some of it, and just throwing different ideas around. I think that we put our, the espresso martinis going crazy right now. So we do a nitro espresso. Can't even say it. Nitro espresso martini on tap now, and just developed the recipe. We keg it ourselves, and pressurize it with the nitrogen, and we have it on draft and comes right off. And then we have our spicy margaritas on draft as well, and continue to dig into that. And it's again just like we said the whole time, it's kind of we just evolve, what's working, what's not working, and what are we going to do next. And so we've continued to expand the cocktail list. We've got some high-end offerings like the smoked old-fashioned, where we're using a higher-end bourbon that kind of rotates in what we're enjoying right now, which we're doing Whistle Pig and some different things. We're doing the Whistle Pig, and that smokes table side. We just did a tequila dinner, a Don Julio tequila dinner here, and a couple of the cocktails from there were so good we kept them on. So we had the Don Julio Cristalino, where we do an old-fashioned with it as well, but it's a clear añejo. I'd never tried before. I thought it was so cool. So it's basically a clear old-fashioned that we're making with tequila.
Wow.
And that's one of the new things we've started is our dinner series. So we started with that tequila dinner. We have one coming up next week that we're doing with world-class imports. It's more of a wine-driven with imported products. And we've got another local wine dinner in November coming up with Sam Pillsbury, and we're going to dig into the local one on that. And then we have another one planned in December that's going to be champagne-driven. It's going to be an all-champagne dinner.
So are these dinners, are they like quarterly? Like, is there a rough schedule? Or
every last Thursday of every month until the end of the year. And, it was something that Jeremy had a lot of success with. And like he said, I mean, we're always down to try something, right? And so we're always looking to build sales, and that was something that he brought to the table, and it was a very unique and cool idea. And I was in Flagstaff when we did the first one, but the party went off, and it was great, and everybody had a great time. And it's a great time to bring a date in if you really want to impress a date and do something cool and outside the box. We're trying everything. I mean, we started Geunine After Dark, so we're working with a promoter to build the business from 10 to 2 a.m. And we've got our sister bar, the Womack, and lean into building some late night sales over here and packing the place with bottle service and DJs and whatnot. It was kind of a unique idea that I'd thrown around for a long time, but it was like, you remember watching Beverly Hills 90210, and they had the Peach Pit After Dark, and it's like, well, we don't just have to be a restaurant. And, at the end of the day, we're in the business to earn profit, and we got to get there, so let's try everything. And the dinner series went off great. The promoters, got to build up at some point, and then Jeremy made a connection with 98.3, and they're doing some stuff with Mo, the DJ for 98.3. Sorry, 93.3. Correction. Can we go back and edit that, please? So, he's got another dinner with her on Sunday, so it's like we start cycling through this stuff as we're catching up throughout the day. It's like, man, we got a lot going on, know? So I think that's the cool part is like you can get a unique experience in here.
Absolutely.
And a lot of our other places, I mean, Taking Back Sundays doing a performance before their concert at the Big Fillmore next month, and music's a big part of what we do. So I think that's kind of unique. You don't go to too many restaurants that have good musicians playing while you're enjoying dinner, and so yeah, I mean, we're always trying to do stuff that's cool and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think you guys have found that lane of like the cool neighborhood spot, but a little bit more elevated than that. Even somewhere like the Vig is not just your regular normal neighborhood spot, especially when you look at the different locations and the stuff that you've been bringing to the table. And like, sure, maybe the cocktails there are not as tuned up as they are here. And maybe you would describe that differently. I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, with the music that you have there and how unique of a spot the Womack is compared to here, it really is incredible how you've created so many different vibes.
It's interesting. We were sitting down with one of our vendors a few months ago, and we asked them what their opinion was of the Vig, right? And you don't really cycle back into that. You just kind of go. Every day's, you're doing something, right? You don't really, you can read customer comments, but then when you talk to a vendor, well, what do you think? We love it. And it's a why? Because the Vig's been around for 16 years. That's a nice run for most people, right? But it's still relevant, and we can still open more Vigs, and people know it, and it's ultra relevant, right?
Sure.
And it's like, well, you're not Houston's, but you're also not like, what was the low end? Not low end, but average. For like a tavern.
Like a regular sports bar.
Or like a Red Robin or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of fall in between. You're not gouging people, but you're affordable, and you're offering people a cool experience with really great food and beverage, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I guess sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses, right? Like, because every day it's challenge. And,
especially in the restaurant business.
And you kind of get down and out, and you kind of ho-hum, and, you start thinking about what you can do better. But when you hear stuff like that, it's like, that's kind of cool that it's still relevant,
And like you said, with the cocktail program at the Vig, it might not be quite as elevated as here, but I think the cocktail program here has inspired us to get the Vig there. And with the opening of Park West last month, like I mentioned, the Nitro Martini, well, we got to it was so popular here, we're putting it on the menu there. So, all these things are just eventually trickled down to what we're doing at the Vigs as well. So there's no reason... we even when we opened Compo, it was Jim Tucker said, "Well, that food's great. Like, why can't we do that at the Vig?" I said, "All right, let's dig into it.
Sure.
We did this here. Why can't we do that at the Vig?" So, really, that's what's cool about our other spots that aren't the Vigs, is that the ideas can trickle into them, and we can start elevating the cocktail programs at all of our locations. So.
Well, and I should have spoken more carefully too, because I ran into you at the Vig. What was it, like a week ago maybe? And I forget the exact name of the cocktail, but it was using Empress Gin, and it was not, I guess my memory of it was back when I was drinking Captain and Cokes, and you have what is it called, the Biddy over there that is just like Captain, Coke, and lime, and then part of it goes to charity. That's a good drink, whether you have to drink a fancy cocktail or not, that's a good drink. But then that one with the Empress Gin that I tried, that's something that I would have expected to have here, even though it's at the Vig.
Right. No, and like I said, I think this location really inspired us to start playing with some new stuff at the Vigs. And Tito's and soda is a staple at the Vig, and
Sure.
we run that special all summer, for $5. But you can still get that, but you're going to be able to get some cool stuff as well.
Well, that was the other thing too, right? Like, not just a beverage, but Park West, Jeremy put a rotisserie in, and now they're doing rotisserie chicken and prime rib, and now it's like, okay,
That's your newest location, right?
Yeah.
Is Park West?
Yeah.
where else are we going to do that? So McDowell Mountain, we're going to put one in. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they'll have their own they're neighborhood restaurants. So they're we've always talked about all right, well, each one has its kind of own individual neighborhood menu section, right? But it's cool. You can get the same experience, but a little bit different of experience.
Absolutely. Well, if you have not been to the Geunine, I implore you to come visit this spot so you can get an extra special taste of Chef's Touch here, as well as the rest of the team, of course. Try some of the cocktails, but visit your guys' other locations as well, because each of them really is unique, and I enjoy your guys' food and drink so much. I'll go to all of them any day of the week. I don't have to, I won't petition that whatsoever. Gentlemen, before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to throw in about what you guys have going on?
Oh boy.
I think we nailed most of it. Of course, like I said, I wanted to get the dinner series out there that we're starting. We're really excited about that and doing the wine pairings. And again, it'll be another one of those things that just continues to evolve. We're doing it last Thursday of every month through the end of the year, and we'll pick it right back up in the beginning of next year as well. So
We got fall menus coming out at all the brands. So
Yep.
that should be fun.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
always fun.
yeah, the menu changes here at the Geunine on Friday in just a couple days. So.
And
Nice.
Jeremy's going for a haircut next week.
And I should mention, too, that the VIG is planning on joining us for our upcoming A Taste of AZ Food and Beverage
Yep.
Festival. So can't wait to see what you guys turn out for that. That's going to be a wonderful evening, and I'm so glad to have you guys there.
Yeah.
Thanks
Very
for having
excited.
us.
Well, gentlemen, once again, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to hear about your guys' stories and why this really is your guys' flagship restaurant. And it was a wonderful chat. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com.